This is the 18th season of Bass Talk Live. With your host, Matt Pangrath. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Bass Cat Boats, AFCO, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries.
BTL, coming at you!
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk about bass fishing. Season's in full swing right now. Actually, as I am recording this episode, I am on Cherokee, hopefully catching bountiful amounts of smallmouth bass. But today we've got an interesting show. We have two guys on that I call them grinders in the sport, guys that really know how to get the job done. First is Josh Douglas. We've had Josh on the show before. He kind of chronicled his 10-year journey to the Elite Series after a really good career over on the FLW Tour, MLF Pro Circuit now, but he is now 3 events into his Elite Series career, and he's hanging in there, 54th to open things up, then an 81st, and then a 38th just a couple weeks ago there at Santee Cooper, but anchored with a 28-pound, 2-ounce effort on day 2. And one of the things that I really like about social media, you can say what you want, the ills or the positives about social media, is you get kind of a look and glimpse into a lot of these guys and how their days went and, what they choose to post and not post. With live, we obviously see a lot. We've seen how Drew Cook won that Elite Series event and some interesting things he was doing as far as, using his rod to shake the bait. And on the last BTL that he was a guest on, he talked about how he likes to keep that bait in one kind of compact package so he can move the bait without we can shake the bait without actually moving the bait. But along those lines, I came across a Instagram post. I'm sure he posted it on Facebook and all of his other social media platforms. I just don't ever hardly get on Facebook and scroll. But it was Josh Douglas doing some crazy stuff, bed fishing on Santee Cooper. Like some weird stuff with his hand. It reminded me a little bit of the West Coast stuff. So we're going to get him in to talk a little bit about that, and then how his first 3 events have gone on the Elite Series. Like, dude, it's a stressful time for the rookies because the way the Elite Series is set up now, like, you don't catch them, you get 2 years to prove yourself and you're out, and you have to stay up there in that average. And there's a bunch of guys who came on last year that really have to catch them in the second half of the season to stay on. So the more checks you cash, the more top half finishes you have early on in your career, it really helps you with that 2-year average before you can make it, 3, 4, 5 years. And then you actually get to, I guess, like drop a year. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it's not just your last 2 years. You can actually drop a bad year there. In the second half of the show, we have an angler who he won on a wraparound season, but his last 2 events, he's won $100,000 and he's won 2 trophies. And that would be Taylor Watkins from Tennessee. He won the last NPFL, the 6th stop of the 2021 season, on Grand Lake. And then the first stop of the 2022 season was on Cumberland. And if you remember, we kind of had a preview on that. We had the president of the NPFL come on, talk about how everything is moving forward with that. And then promptly the first 2 days of the 3-day event, which was full field, was canceled because the lake came up like 5-foot, torrential downpours, freezing rain, the whole 9 yards. But Taylor Watkins went out on a 1-day derby for $50,000 with over 100 guys. He blew the field away. 23 pounds, 6 ounces to win by 8 pounds on Lake Cumberland. Anyway, I was at the Bassmaster Classic, and I was walking through the expo with John Sokup, who with the Bass Tank now is like the Pied Piper, and guys just like come out of the woodwork to ask him electronics questions. So it took us like 45 minutes to go like a quarter of a mile through the expo. But I met Taylor Watkins. He said, hey, this is it. Started to talk to him. I said, man, I think you'd be a great guest on BTL. So we will talk with Taylor Watkins about his run, his historic run. He's won back-to-back there in the second half of the show. But we are going to take just a quick commercial break, and then we will be back with Josh Douglas to talk bed fishing and the first 30% of his Elite Series career. It's BTL. We'll be back after this.
Bigger and better. The Lowrance Ultimate Fishing System upgrade now offers more. A new $200 rebate on active target live sonar and bigger savings with up to $1,200 cash back. Pick fish finding tools to fit the way you fish. From high-performance sonar and ultra-quiet ghost trolling motor to navigation and networking tools that bring it all together. Find more, see more, catch more.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
I've made my living on the water for over 20 years.
For 14 years.
For over 23 years.
I've worn a bunch of different clothing brands over the years.
Some companies big.
And some companies small.
All of them said they were making clothing for us.
But none of them knew us.
None of them were us. Except for one.
Except for one.
Except one.
AFCO.
AFCO.
AFCO. AFCO.
Fishing isn't part of us. It is us.
The KVD 100 jerkbait. 15 different colors. A perfect combination of roll, wiggle, and flash. Increased castability. 3D eyes. Premium black nickel hooks. KVD. Tie one on. Striking lures.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? Well, the Bass Tank is here to help you. The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
All right, welcome back to BTL. And it is time now to go to the man from Minnesota, the one and only Elite Series Pro, Josh Douglas. We got audio issues, or are you good, Josh?
I think we're good. I have internet issues. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound fantastic.
All right, good enough. Good enough.
Ditching the AirPods, but you're back. You are actually, I would say you're in your, what, are you an RV or a truck camper?
Lance camper, yeah. Truck
Lance camper. So you're in your office, which is basically the Lance camper, because it seems like you're on the road, like you leave, and you're like gone for like several months at a time. Fair assessment?
Yeah, definitely. Well, when it's freezing in Minnesota. As soon as the holidays are over in Minnesota, hunting season's done, obviously the lakes start to freeze. We find it a heck of a lot easier to do our job on the road in our camper and just kind of bouncing around. And when we have time to kill, we find a cool lake. And you know my track record with spotted bass. I don't even like talking about it. So I came over to Lake Lanier and trying to dial in my spotted bass game for a little while until we get ready for Chickamauga.
Dude, that's super smart, because I know guys like Justin Lucas. Justin Lucas is a key example. So he knew when they went up to Thousand Islands and Smallmouth Country back in the day when he first qualified for the elites that, like, hey, this is like, they just signed a 3-year deal with Waddington. Like, we're going to be going up here. We're going to be going to Champlain. We're going to be fishing this stuff. So he like stayed there multiple weeks after. We've seen a couple of guys, I think Cliff Perch did the same thing before, and they took a fishery that they knew or something that they had struggled with before, and they actually turned it into one of their strengths, which is kind of, it seems like what you're attempting to do.
Definitely. It's a lot easier to do it when you're not, during an official practice and you're trying to cover your bases and make sure you're getting bites and all that kind of stuff. And these fisheries change all the time. And like I said, I love fishing for spots, and there's not a better place in the world than Lanier. So the more confidence you get fishing for them, and like we did yesterday, it was a fun learning day. We learned a bunch, and both of us, me and my buddy from Minnesota, learned a bunch on a new body, not a new body of water, but I just don't know if there's many better spotted bass fisheries to go. So it's kind of, I'd be lying to you if I said it was all work.
Well, I'm trying to think of that. So spotted bass fisheries, you have to separate it, I think, into four different types of spotted bass fisheries. I think you've got the West Coast, like Bullards, Bar,
Sure,
weird
yeah.
freak show nature, Cody Meyer, world record types. That's like in a class of its own, even though they're technically the same strain as the Alabama spots. Then you've got like the Table Rock spots, Ozark kind of, where you're kind of short and fat, where like a 3-pounder is a good one. You with me on that one still? Then you've got the whole like kind of Coosa chain, Alabama stuff like that, and then but they're like river spots. They're like mean. They're a little different. And then you have like the kind of Lake Lanier, Hartwell, Murray, that whole type of deal.
The blueback lakes.
The blueback spots. Would you say that's four kind of, even though they're all spotted bass, the four kind of differentiated spotted bass geographical locations?
Yeah, it seems like those central lakes around you and stuff like that seem to be more, limit getters. You're not exactly most of the time going for them. You're looking for big heads, largemouths in that area, or sometimes smallies. But when you get, of course, out west, just looks like a freak show out there. But when you get around, these blueback lakes, and you get around, the Alabama spot, that's probably the fish that you want to target. It's just like Mille Lacs. You can come there and you can fish for largemouth. They get big, but you're fishing for the wrong species. The smallie is going to win the battle every single time. So definitely. But these blueback lakes are crazy because the largemouth is starting to turn into a spotted bass out there roaming around, and then they get like 7, 8, 9 pounds, dude. They get huge, So
it's like white bass fishing.
Yeah, it's essentially you're looking
it really
for it. And that's been my problem with them. I have no problem with spotted bass around Oklahoma and the Table Rock and stuff like that. They're biters, they love shaky heads and stuff like that. But it's the roaming, the pelagicness of the Coosa River, these the Smith Lakes, the Lake Laniers. It's those fish are weird, man. Like yesterday, we started out, throwing jerk baits and blow throughs and stuff, just fishing, and then all of a sudden it was like shade lines. Whatever had a shade on it. If it didn't have a shade and it was right on the line, they just like sit there and use that as their deal. So still always fun and always trying to learn and just stay fishing, man. I'm not a natural. I have to stay on the water every single day to compete with these guys. So it's important to me to just keep fishing every day.
I mean, you're kind of a natural.
Yeah.
I mean, what you do up north. I mean, you're not expected to just like go around and start jacking them all the time.
Yeah, I expect to go around and jack them all the time. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know, man. I just don't know what else to do besides.
Okay, I want to talk to you about that because so we talked about how you've had a lot of success on the FLW tour, now the MLF pro circuit, really close to making the Elite Series a bunch of times, but you're known as one of the hardest workers out there. You're known as a lot of graph time. You love the post where you've got the music going and you're like, oh, here's like a roast beef sandwich, and I've been graphing for 14 hours for 6 days straight, and it worked. It paid off. But then you go to the Elite Series where as soon as you make it, the schedule's announced, it's 100% off limits, and you've got 2.5 days. And I've thought that has to be really hard on a guy who relies so much on navionics and graphing and finding areas to find Elite Series caliber areas that style on unfamiliar bodies of water. Have you found through the first three that that 2.5 days of practice is kind of challenging, or did you kind of have that dialed in already through your time over on FLW?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've done it long enough now to know that you need to you need to fish the moment. That's the biggest deal. So as much as I've had big finishes, brush pile fishing and stuff, it's just like fishing Lake Mille Lacs to me. You know, if I take a place like, you know, Sam Rayburn, where I took second fishing brush piles, or even a place like Santee Cooper, it's full of cypress trees. It'd be like me sending you to Mille Lacs and say, just fish the rocks and you'll be good. Or like fish the lily pads on Kissimmee and you're fine. It's certain lily pads, certain rocks, certain cypress trees, and certain brush piles are going to hold fish. So they're something you just can't do in 3 days. No, you can, because I did actually at Santee Cooper. I covered my bases and I idled for the most part, the first day looking for brush piles. But they just seemed for me to be getting out of them, or I just wasn't fishing them right. Obviously for Brandon, it was a different story. But again, he was fishing a part of the lake that I don't think had near the amount of features that the area that I chose to fish in. But at the same time, you know, if like a place like the Opens, you're talking 225 boats. The biggest adjustment for me on the elites now is just the 90 boats is kind of a lot of things can be open or not beat up so entirely bad. So as much as I'd always practice, you know, if the Opens, if you can practice for a week, I'd take the first 4 days and idle. But then after that, I'd let all that go and then just start throwing buzzbait or going up shallow or just fishing my natural strengths. But at least I had that backup. So if all of a sudden, like at Norman, I wanted to throw buzzbait for 8 hours a day. But when that wasn't really working for me, then I reverted back to those brush piles, and it got me into the elite series. It got me into the elite. So, you know, a lot of it's just trial and error, just trying to cover your base. But the biggest thing is just staying with fish. And I'm versatile. That's one thing. Sometimes I think I need to just pick my strength and just do that. But versatility maybe is my strength, and I just need to kind of keep doing that as we grow. But definitely, you know, the elites, the FLW tour, they're all the same when it comes to strength and stuff like that. There's just, you know, I always fished against really, really good anglers, and heck, the Opens are littered with both sides and local pros. So it's always a strong field. But yeah, definitely, you know, I like to flick the electronics on, but I actually like fishing shallow and stuff like that more at the end of the day. I just like to go fishing. So
that's good to hear, because you give me anxiety, because I would be like at home in Oklahoma and you'd be out with like Lutsen, be like day 3, and I'd be like, crap, I haven't even left yet, and this guy's got 35 hours on the lake we're headed to.
Yeah, sometimes it just depends. It was always those fall tournaments, man. The fall tournaments are grimy, and then when you had 225 boats, and I just did it. I've just done it for, like you said, it was my 9th year. You know what I mean? Like, I've just got my butt kicked in those tournaments before, so I just knew that.
Wait,
especially when you have something to fish for. If you're still in contention, then you better.
You think that extra time on the water in the fall is as beneficial as it is in the post-spawn in summer? Because my whole theory was I don't want to be on the water in the fall because everything's changing so rapidly, and the bait fish are moving. So I intentionally, at the end of the Opens last year, spent less time on the water. So I was fishing as the cold fronts came in. It changed as opposed to a week in advance. But you said you spent more time on them in the fall, which obviously worked. Yeah, you're on the Elite Series this year. I'm sitting in the studio.
Yeah, definitely. I will in the fall. But again, I mean, you know, you're talking about, like, you know, I showed up at that Rayburn tournament, and I think I gave myself 5 days to practice. And the first 2 days I wanted to fish grass, and I was not catching them very good out of the grass. Then I idled around. I found 5 brush piles. I fished the first one. I caught a 7-pounder, and I just never made another cast for 3 days. I just idled brush piles, and that's the key. It's if you're looking for stop signs. You know, if you're talking just fishing, no, that's what I'm saying. Like I won't fish. I won't even have a rod on my deck. I got the music on. I got a bunch of snacks in the boat, and I'm just idling around. And because if I stop, yeah, you just got to keep going, you know. But again, I'm also from Lake Mille Lacs, where rocks are power. You know what I mean? And if you have it's stop signs, and if you have a lot of them, you're gonna end up being okay. You know, at the end of the day, you always have a target to fish. So
I hear you. Like I said, I just don't have that willpower. I don't care where we go. Like I'm always like, I at least have to get a bait wet in the first 5 minutes after I put the boat in the water. And I claim that it's to be able to see what water clarity is like near the ramp, but it's just I'm just too anxious. For first 3 elites.
Hold on 1 second before you start. I can't. I've been burned by that way too many times. I've had too many fish burn me and send me in another direction too early. And I think Jason Christie made an awesome point after he won the Classic. I don't know if you read the article or I don't even know where I saw it, but he said that he wanted to fish dirty water. That's his strength. Spinnerbait, dirty water. And he was fishing out deep and he was just doing okay. But then all of a sudden he went to this dirty water. He caught like a 6-pounder on Hartwell.
Yep.
And he lifted his trolling motor and said, that fish is trying to screw me. And he left and went back to what his brain was telling him was going to be right. And he hoisted the trophy at the end of the day. And it's little things like that I just pick up. And I try not to. A fish a week before the tournament cannot teach me nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
They can barely teach you anything on the first official day of practice. It's more so what's going on the day or two before the tournament. And then in the tournament, that's going to matter the most. Sorry.
That was such a baller move by Christie. Because he said on our show, he was like on the last day, he's like, all I wanted to do is pick it up because I'd caught that 6. He's like, he said after he caught it that he like put his rods away and was like, nope, not going down this path.
Yep. Trial and error. And I just picked out of all the stuff I heard, and he is just an absolute hammer and a great Bassmaster Classic champion. But out of everything I heard him say, all the cool little tips and tricks and stuff he gave from the Classic, that was the one comment that resonated with me the most. Was
ignore the biggest bite of practice.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do that, or just know that the field's going to beat it up and stuff like that. So
yeah, you haven't set the world on fire, but you also haven't had a bad start to your Elite Series career. 54th, 81st, probably not where you wanted to be to get out of Florida, but then a 38th at Santee puts you're still right there in the hunt for the Classic spot, and have got a little bit of money in your pocket. Your analysis after the first 3 stops?
Yeah, good. St. John's, I was kind of lost. I made a bad decision on day 1. I went to Rodman, chasing a couple bites I got there, and just kind of kept practicing. Day 2, stayed close to the boat ramp and had a big second day. Cut a little check, and just it was nice to get the first one under the belt. The Harris chain is just Florida, man. I actually liked the way I fished in that tournament more so than even the other 3, even though it didn't resonate to that. I caught like 11 something a day. I just never landed a 4 or 5 pounder that I needed to catch. And I fished for him. That's one thing I said I was going to do this year in the Elites, is not worry about points so much and try to win tournaments. You don't know how long you're going to be here. If it's 2 years, if it's 10 years, if it's 20 years, I just don't know. But every single tournament that clicks is one less that I got an opportunity to try to win one that'll last a lifetime, So I left day 1, I put together a small limit, and then I went bed fishing. Should have done that from the get-go or not done it at all. And I just never came across a big one, and just kind of burned my day, and then was left with just grass fishing with the groups, and just never really got a big bite. And that's just Florida, man. I mean, it ain't that I didn't catch them. It ain't that I weighed in a bass or 2. I was catching, I was calling. I just wasn't getting the bigger bites, or the one big bite you need to make the cut day. So that was fine. I honestly was fine with it. Wish I would have done a little better, but still, I knew I'd be okay. And at the end of the day, you just got to look at yourself. If you're fishing good, if you were around the right fish and just didn't get them, stuff like that. And I'm trying to grade myself against some of the best in the world right now. So I felt good leaving there. And then Santee Cooper, never been. I tried to go there in pre-practice. I knew it's a rat's nest to run around. But I couldn't. Swindle told me if it's blowing 15 mile an hour or more, it's the most treacherous lake in the world. And every time I tried to look at it when I was in Florida to think about going there, it was just bucking in like 28 degrees. And so I just never went. But again, when you do it long enough, I think you make good decisions. I picked one area of the lake from Utah Creek to the dam on that side of the lake, and or from the cut through to go to Moultrie, and it looked like a rat's nest to me. So I just got in there right away and practiced every single day in there. So I had brush piles, I had trees, and I had spawning areas. And in the end, the spawning bass were definitely what I honed in on. And just ran out of fish the 3rd day. I wish I would have known the lake a little bit better to be able to move around. But when you're bed fishing, your stuff doesn't really get good till 10, 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when you really start to be able to see. And that's when you saw on Bass Live and stuff, weights just start going up. So by the time I kind of realized that my stuff was getting dirty and I was my fish were leaving, I didn't really have much option than to try to save face. I didn't really know where to go or how to get there without ripping my lower unit off trying to get there quick. So in the end, wish I would have showed out a little bit better on that day 3, but still, yeah, day 1 was salvageable. I think I was right on the cut line, and then, kept me in it. And then that second day was awesome, man. It was
28.2 on the second day.
Yeah.
28.2. That's a career bag. Is that the biggest bag you've ever weighed in?
In a tournament, yeah, for sure.
In a derby. You've had bigger bags of smallmouth on Mille Lacs like every day that ends in Y.
No, I actually have never had 28 pounds on Mille Lacs. People say they have, but
not even fun fishing? Like not even guiding?
That's big bag, man. 28, no, that's a big, no. 25s, 26, 27s is my biggest.
You've never hit 28 on Mille Lacs with your best 5?
Not that I have seen on a scale and can tell you.
I would have lost a lot of money on that bet.
A lot of people say a lot. Yeah, Mille Lacs is good. Mille Lacs is really good. It's got a lot of 3 and 4, or a lot of 4-pounders. It's probably the best 4-pound lake for smallies out there, but it's not Great Lake worthy like the Great Lakes with the gobies and just fish that maybe have never seen a bait before type of stuff.
Okay.
So
that's fair enough.
I hear guys say they catch 30, but I've never seen them put it on a scale before. So
hey, one Mille Lacs question. We're not going to get into the Mille Lacs thing. That's a wormhole that you always end up going down. I don't want to go down there because we have a really cool video that I want to get into about the 28.2. But the one Mille Lacs question that I haven't asked you before. Have you in the past had guide clients that have caught a fish and when they reel it in, you're like, oh, that's old One Eye Slim. Like you recognize the fish that they're catching. You're like, that's the 7th time I've caught that someone has caught that fish in my boat.
No, the only way that's going to happen is probably I've seen it before in tournaments where I practiced, caught a fish, and then went back and caught him. But that's generally only going to happen when you're bed fishing. That you're going to know, you know what I mean? There's a lot, like Active Target has taught me that there's way more bass than I ever thought were.
I just assume they're like your pets out there as good as you are.
No, that lake, it's God's got a way of protecting his babies. Mother Nature makes that just you have to move around on it a lot. And then even when I'm bed fishing, I just never really fished the same stuff twice. And I generally, except for maybe the first couple of days of the spawn, I generally ignore the ones that everyone else can see in the first place. So
the only time I was up there, the ones I could see, like half of them had plastic coming out of their butts when you caught them. And you're like, that fish has been through some stuff over the last week and a half.
Yeah, like really shallow. I don't have it in my heart when I'm out there making money doing it. I everyone else can see them fish, and I just don't have no business. I specialize in catching. You saw that. I think the first time you ever really talked about me was using the flogger offshore. Yeah. I'm not looking at fish in 2 feet of water with the flogger. I'm out in 10, 12. Looking in specialty spots for them and stuff like that. Nobody else caught that bass. That's my bass.
All right, we got to get to this video. So this was this day 2?
Yeah, that was day 2. Yep.
All right, so this is day 2, and you posted this video, and I watched it probably 12 times, and then I called you, and I was like, hey, can you come on and talk about this video real quick on BTL? This is a bedfish, so for our iTunes listeners, for the YouTube, you just watch it. But for the iTunes listeners, it's a 40-second clip. I'd like you to walk us through what's going on here.
Josh. I think this was my 5th fish of the day. My limit fish.
What is that? What is happening right now? What are you doing with your line right now? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm agitating the heck out of that. I'm hopping the line, but keeping the bait right there. I'm using like a ringed hook. That'll hop up and down, it's like lets it get free motion without moving it too much. And I'm just pestering the heck out of that male.
Your rod is motionless.
You didn't see is the 10 minutes before.
Rod's motionless, right?
Yep. And I'm just flicking the line. And I'm just flicking the line with my hand. Sometimes I'll hit the butt of the rod too, and just kind of like this, but I'm just hopping that bait, but trying to keep it in one spot. And you'll watch the fish get super, super frustrated with it. Yeah, and then I just that fish was mad. Finally, that was about an hour working. Yeah,
and then boat flip it, and then boom. Okay, but I've seen the guys mess with the rod butts. I've seen the guys violently shake the rods, but I've never seen anyone do like, okay, here's the way I would describe it. Picture like you're doing the hang loose sign where you like shake your hand back and forth like, oh yeah, we're in Hawaii on vacation. Woo, we like surfing. And then do it really rapidly. You have your line in your hand like that, and you're just shaking it like that. I had not. Is that something that you do up north? Is that something that someone taught you? Was that the first time you'd ever done that and you just felt inspired?
No, I've done it for a while. Smallies I'd never do it with, and you don't need to. I've just never. Largemouths are just tricky. But like I said, what you don't see is that I was working that bass for an hour. What you also don't see is there's like a 9 or 10 pounder that shows herself every now and then, but I just could never get that fish to sit still. So that was the male. It was a 4 pounder. And I think as much as I was trying to frustrate him or her into biting, that you're looking at the frustration on my end of watching the minutes click too, and like, just eat the bait, just take it, and I had him pretty fired up. He was doing circles around the bed. Finally, the first couple pitches, it would go for a long walk and come back 2 minutes later, and it took forever to dial that fish in. It was kind of deep, actually. It was like 5 feet, so I wasn't quite sure how big he was. It ended up being the smallest one in my bag that day, but just kind of flicking that line as hard as violently, not violently, but just like you're watching me get as pissed as that fish was getting too. I'm like, just eat the bait. But the biggest thing is I'm trying to buy real estate on the bed, right? Because the fish doesn't care about anything else that's not in that nest. And they're never ever eating for food. They're only eating, out of to move the bait. So all that fish is doing is sitting there annoying, and I'm trying to buy as much real estate as I can with that. And he was so fired up, he was doing circles around it. And then when I dead stuck it, the bait kind of stuck up in the air, and I could see him start to nose down. And finally, he just sucked it in, and I got him.
2 lines that are going to stick with me. The fish going for a long walk, that's gold. I like that. Fish went for a long walk. That's when it leaves the bed, meanders around, and then comes in the backside. Yeah, and you're like, oh God, are you coming back or not? Please come back. And then buying real estate in the bed. Definitely. That is a great line. That is a great mental picture of what you are trying to do to get a bedded fish to bite. Buying real estate in the bed.
Yeah. My favorite is when I just pitch in there and I watch them nose it and the belly goes up and they suck it in. That's the best, but that's just not reality of the situation, and bedfish sometimes take time. And I'm just trying to buy time in that nest, because once I pull it out of that sweet spot, the fish could care less every single time.
The other line, someone said it a couple years ago. They said they captured a nesting bass. I don't know why it just sounded good to me instead of like caught a bedfish, captured a nesting bass.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And the fish, they know you're there. They're not dumb. You're just using nature against them a little bit, and taking them for a boat ride if you're lucky enough to get them. But like even that, some people, you can love or hate bed fishing. I generally don't go do it for fun. It's not what I do when I go fun fishing. I'll ignore bed fish for pre-spawners and post-spawners all the time, but it's an efficient way to do well in tournaments when you dial them in. But then like even that next day, I tried to fish in those areas, and again, God protects its babies. I couldn't see nothing. You know what I mean? Like those fish they were able to. Sorry, I'm losing my
lance.
Internet.
Everything's going nuts in the lance.
Right now. Yeah. No,
it's all good.
That area I just could not see it. It muddy and it was a little deep, and those fish had the freedom to do whatever the heck they wanted that day.
All right, what else you got?
If you can't see them, they're tough to catch.
Yeah, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of sight fishing.
Man. Yeah, exactly. Looking forward to Chickamauga. Chickamauga. We got slugfest after slugfest after slugfest.
I know, and so far you hit the first one right, so hopefully you'll hit the rest of them right. Well, for you, last year they got it when it was like super tough, so maybe you'll get the slugfest part of it.
Yeah, where on Chickamauga?
Any of them?
You talking about
like the next 4?
Yeah, no, they're gonna be lights out. I think looking at the weather and looking at the water level and all that for Chickamauga, it's a lake I've had success on. I I want to say it was my first top 10 ever in an open was on Chickamauga right around the same time frame. So I'm hoping to have a little bit of that magic back. And then, Lake Fork, I ain't never been there. So I got my work cut out for me. I've never been to Pickwick, never been to Fork. I've been to the St. Lawrence, but we were way up by Montreal. So I've never even seen the Canadian side. And these guys, it's like their home water. So I got a lot. I'm sure I'll be all right. But then Oahe is probably pretty close. I mean, everyone
You'll be fine.
keeps asking me. I've never even been there, and it's like 8 hours
it's
from
a
my
smallmouth,
house.
Dude. Like the smallmouth know you, and you know the smallmouth. So.
Right. I'd much rather fish for. I mean, whatever. I like them all.
It's all good. Well, dude, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for hopping on BTL, and I'll let you get back to taking care of business in the Lance.
Booking guide trips. Booking guide
trips.
Man.
You're that probably takes one day, and you're booked for the year, right?
Yeah. That's about what it is, man. Book now or forever hold your peace, man. It'll be 220.
Do you have anything open left?
I'm literally filling them as we speak.
Okay.
So,
if there's an outside chance though, if someone went to Josh Douglas fishing.
Yeah, they'd have to do it right now. I got a pretty big waiting list, but depending on the dates and all that kind of stuff. What's nice about the elites as composed and not fishing the opens just for this year. I have a pretty big fall. I'm open I get to be home, end of July end of August all the way through until she freezes up. So we'll be out there catching them.
Good deal. Thank you for the time, Josh.
Appreciate you, man. Always, man. Take care.
All right. See you. That was Elite Series Pro Josh Douglas, and I'm sure he likes hearing himself referred to as that. Our next guest, he can refer to himself as a 2-time TNPFL champion and has won well over $100,000 in the National Professional Fishing League in just 7 tournaments, which is pretty impressive. And that is Taylor Watkins, and we will bring him in after these messages. This is Bass Talk Live.
The new Android series is the peak of the Denali lineup and offers the ultimate Denali experience. The Android series features 36-ton multi-directional graphite combined with interlock blank technology for added strength. Each rod is outfitted with Royal titanium guides that will not fail. The blank is fitted into an easy-touch, soft-feel EVA foam grip with exposed blank reel seat. This all allows the Android to transmit every movement of your bait and even the most subtle bites. The Android series is the finest rod Denali has ever made and offers an angler the ultimate fishing experience with a limited lifetime warranty. See the full lineup of Android rods at DenaliRods.com.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Combining one of the most popular hook styles with Gamakatsu's beefier Superline offering, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend delivers the strength necessary to target big fish in heavy cover. Well suited for braided line and heavier fluorocarbon, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend is built using stronger Superline wire that allows anglers to easily fish a finesse worm around heavy cover. The round bend offers a larger bite area, perfect for any worm presentation, while increasing your hookup ratios. The newly enhanced Z-bend holds your plastics on the hook longer, reducing the number of pull-offs and reducing damage to plastics. Available in 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, this is the most durable worm hook, designed for heavier lines that hold your bait on longer.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
Vibrating jigs are a great choice for any time of year, and the Kamikaze Swim-On is a perfect match for any vibrating jig. 2 sizes and the unique tail design gives it a bait fish profile and a great swimming action for realism. There are 17 colors. See them all at bigbitebaits.com.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Welcome back to BTL. That was some good stuff there by Josh Douglas. Our next guest, like I talked about at the beginning of the show, Taylor Watkins, back-to-back NPFL winner, won the Stage 6? I don't think they're calling them stages. Stop 6. Won Stop 6 on Grand in October. Like a local, too. Buzzbait and a jig around docks, and then went to Cumberland, which is more his style in his backyard. And the first 2 days of that event were canceled, and then he went out and dropped 23-6 on everyone, beat everyone by 8 pounds, and won $50,000 in one day. So how's that for an introduction, Taylor?
That's awesome. I like it.
Is that kind of how it went down pretty much on both of those 2 stops on the National Professional Fishing League?
I wished it was that easy, how you could just like speak it, then it would happen. But yeah, that's pretty much how it went.
Now, Grand was a grind. Grand is always a grind. In the fall, last October, we saw how that tournament went down. I think it's hard to characterize anything but a grind on Grand in the fall. 50 pounds to 3 ounces over 3 days. But Cumberland, and I talked to you a little bit about this. Like I said before, I met you at the Bassmaster Classic, walking down the aisle with John Sokum, and took us an hour to go 100 yards. But I met you, and then I was like, hey, I need to get you on the show. But it seems like at Cumberland earlier this year, with 2 days canceled because of weather, nasty, like had kind of been there before, kind of maybe knew what was fixing to happen, and then made a couple key calls and just blistered them.
Yeah, it was a good week. Like you said, I've seen those conditions a couple of times before, just fishing in the East Tennessee area. And we get those big rains, and it'll be a warm rain. And those tournaments are always won up in the river with big largemouth. And it's not like they're full of the top 10, but that's how it's won. There'll be some guys scattered out through the top 10, top 15 that go down fish for smallmouth, but that big bag always comes from up there in a runoff or somewhere where that warmer water, dingier water is present. So luckily, that's the only place I had gotten a bite during practice, so I didn't really have much else to go to, and I just went in there hoping for one bite, and then one bite turned into 2 and 3 and 4 and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it kind of went into my favor.
One of the things that I thought would be real interesting to the Bass Talk Live listeners was kind of how you described how you were able to re-find those fish on the one day. So to set it up, you had 3 days of practice, then you had an off day, which was media day, and then following media day, it was supposed to be 3 days of competition. But Mother Nature and the time of the year with that lake, it seems to always rise that time of the year, came up like 6-8 foot, dumped like 6-7 inches of rain. So it had been a full 72 hours before you had been on that lake before. And there were, you said there were other guys in the area, but you were the only one who was able to make a game day adjustment and literally re-find those big largemouth that you had connected with 4 days before on the final day of practice, correct?
Yep. So during practice, I got 3 bites in that creek. And wherever they were scattered, they were spread out. Like I got a bite, and then traveled some distance, got another bite, crunked the motor up, idled a ways, got a bite. And, I kind of made up my mind, this is going to be my home. I don't have anywhere else to go. This is going to be my home. But the way that tournament worked out was they allowed us to all have the same amount of fishing time. So the first flight went out. We have 15-minute flights, and we had to wait 15 minutes. And then second flight, 15. Third flight, 15. And so by the time my flight got to it, I was in the fourth flight. I mean, these guys have been out there fishing for an hour and some change or whatever. And whenever I rolled up to the area that I wanted to be in, there was already 4 or 5 guys there working the banks that I wanted to be on. And I did stop and kind of pick my way in there a little bit, and I fished for 20 or 30 minutes. And it was one of those things, like you do it all the time, like your gut is just telling you this is not the right thing to do. There's too much pressure. You just need to go find something different. I didn't know how many fish were going to pull up with that water. So I was kind of had in my mind that I was going to get 2 bites that day. That's what I had in my mind whenever I started, was 2 bites. That was all I was going to get.
Yeah, it was brutal.
And I wanted to keep clean water in front of me. That was my main thing. Whatever I did, I wanted to keep clean water in front of me. That way I had that best chance at, if there was one pulled up there, that I was going to be able to catch it.
What do you mean by that? I don't to stop you. What do you mean by clean water?
Not another angler had already fished through that area.
Okay.
That was what I was looking for. And there was, like I said, 5 or 6 guys that were all fishing that same little area. I'm talking a quarter mile, an eighth of a mile of one creek. There were 7 boats in it. And initially it turned out to be good for all of them. I think 7 out of the top 10 were in that creek. So six of those other boats were in the top 10 as well, including myself. I made number 7. And, but I think that really helped me in the long run, because those guys were getting bites, and that really kept them there, where I went further back into the creek and got into a little bit warmer water, a little bit cleaner water, where it had started to clear up a little bit from all the influx of rain, that it was starting to clear. And I was able to really capitalize on where the bigger fish were pulling up, and I had it all to myself. Had there only been one guy instead of 6 down, on that lower section, that one guy probably could have had 20 pounds as well. But they were shared with those other 6 or 7 boats.
That's interesting. I talk about that in the opens too. Like I want to find a good area that becomes really good, as opposed to find a really good area that becomes good. And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but when you're dealing with 100 to 250 boats, like, you can find the really good areas, and they're really good 2, 3, 4 days before the tournament. But if they're really good, a lot of other people find them and they're really good. And then those areas slowly, they get split up. So yeah, you might be like, hey, this could be a tournament winning area. But then once you analyze how much pressure is this getting, that area loses its value on tournament morning. Not during practice, they're still there, but on tournament morning, when everyone starts on the money stretches, that area loses its value really quick. Well, that area you have that's good, it might not be getting better. It might be the same thing. It might be just a above average stretch, but now it's really good because all the really good stretches are coming down in value, and your stretch is rising in value. And that's like the toughest thing that I've tried to figure out in the big boat tournaments is, how do you find value stretches that the fish will stay in that area, but the value of those fish will rise, as opposed to being like, I think I could win the tournament here, and then being disappointed when 8 other guys are there.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And I've never thought about it in this way that you just put it, but the way that you put it essentially is kind of how I work. My brain works as well, but it's a little bit different in NPFL because we've only got 125 anglers. So Lake Cumberland, a lake like Lake Cumberland, for there to be 6 or 7 guys in one creek,
that's nuts.
A lot. And during practice, there was times that I was like, man, are we having a tournament? Are we having practice right now? Because I wouldn't see anybody for hours. But yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. Especially, it kind of played that way at Grand. I knew I had found a really good area at Grand. I knew there was quality fish there, and there were several people that started in there. I would say there was 4 boats started in there, but they didn't bite in the morning. And nobody capitalized on the bite, so everybody left. Well, I came back at 10:30, 11 o'clock, and by 12:30, 1 o'clock, I had only 17 pounds the first day. So I knew that those fish were there. I just had to figure out how to make them bite. And they weren't really biting in the morning, and everybody went in there in the morning and then left. So it kind of worked out. It was one of those things, just, you know how it is. Whenever it's one of those tournaments that it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen, and things, unfold the way that they should, and it kind of falls in your lap, and then you're sitting there with a great opportunity. Now, whether you capitalize on it or not, that's up to you.
I use an example of one of the NPFL anglers that has really benefited from the formation of this new league. Now, one tournament into the second year. Solid angler. I mean, you fished Toyota series in the past and things, but like the NPFL has kind of really given you a spotlight, having won 2. Not I mean just financially. You won $100,000 last year. You're $150,000 in on 7 tournaments with 35,000 in entry fees. You finished 5th in the Angler of the Year last year, but just kind of talk a little bit about kind of where you came from fishing career, how you ended up on the NPFL, and kind of what your, I guess, 3 to 5 year plan is on the water moving forward.
So, like you said, I fished Toyotas. I jumped in the Toyotas a couple years ago, and whenever I first started, I had mediocre success. And what I mean by mediocre success was my first year, I think I cut 1 check in 3 tournaments, and then barely missed the championship. I had to take a year off. I moved, and we started this business here. We got all this stuff going. I had to take a year off. I fished again, and that year I made the championship. Cashed a check in 2 or all 3 tournaments, something like that, and had an opportunity to win the championship at Guntersville, Coastal Championship. It didn't happen. I lost the fish to win, and like I said, it just wasn't meant to be. I didn't understand why. I didn't understand exactly what was going on with all of that at the time, but little did I know there was a plan for me. So whenever that happened, I was disappointed, but then again, on the other hand, I knew I could compete. I knew that I was good enough to make it and be able to compete. I had made the championship. I had fished the Southern Division the first year, and then I fished the Central Division the second year. So Central Division is Table Rock, Lake of the Ozarks, and I think we went to Kentucky Lake that year. So I knew I had diversified myself to be able to fish in Florida. I knew I had diversified myself to be able to fish in the Central region as well, which I think that was a great move for myself, just to get out on the road and do those things. Well, then the NPFL came about, and I turned in application, all that, talked with Al, talked with Brad. They invited me to come on, and that started a whole new deal. I started looking for sponsors. We're talking $30,000 in entry fees, and then gas and boat gas, truck fuel, all of these things, they add up to substantial amounts. So I started looking for
50 grand to fish a year, at least 50 grand to fish a year.
At least. And that's if you're conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking for sponsors. You know how all that goes. It just, oh yeah, we'll give you a little bit of product. We'll give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that, whatever. It is what it is. I haven't proven myself. Well, I had an opportunity to move some money around and do some different things to be able to get the money to get started. And get started, I mean, I was going to be able to pay for about half the year. So that was kind of, I thought about it for a long time, And I had a friend of mine, come to me and say, dude, you got one chance, take it. And if it works, it works. If it don't, you can at least say you tried. And, and they believed in me. They knew that I could do it. And so that's what I did. I secured my job. I went to my boss and I said, listen, this is what I want to do. Or will you support me? And he said, yeah, I'll support you. I'll pay you for the weeks that you're gone. So I wasn't going to lose the income that I had.
Right.
And that was huge. I think that was the biggest financial decision that I had, that I was still going to have a job. I wasn't going to lose my house. I wasn't going to lose my truck. I wasn't going to lose my boat. I could pay all my bills. But
it's hard to fish if you think you're going to lose your house, boat, and truck if you don't catch them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, so all of that was fine. And so we go to the first tournament at Eufaula, and I go to the first tournament at Eufaula, and I was feeling the pressure for sure, to do well. And I cut my first check, cut my first check, cut the second check, third check, fourth check, fifth check. We're feeling good now. And then I go and win the last one. And NPFL is just, like you said, it's giving me that platform. It's giving me that, I guess it was just meant to be that I did have all of those learning times through the Costas and everything. And I'm not saying that I'm done learning. I'm definitely not done. I learn every time I go, but they kind of prepped me and pruned me for this. So it has been a great move for myself and several other guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You finished 5th in the Angler of the Year last year, like you said, cut a check, and all 6 of them went right at $100,000 in earnings. And then things were up in the air for a while going into 2022. Obviously, the right decision for you with $50K in your pocket and another one of those enormous trophies for one. But was there any hesitation signing up for the second year and coming back after the championship was canceled last year and things were kind of up in limbo as far as what the year was going to look like, what the organization was going to look like, if there was going to be a year two?
No hesitation for me whatsoever. I was all in. As soon as I got the news that the championship was canceled, of course I was upset. Anybody would be. You worked all year to get to this championship, and then there is no championship. But it initially I was upset. And then I sat back and I thought about it, and I thought about where I was and what NPFL had done for me so far and where I felt like it was going. And I reached out to Brad and Paul and Al and a couple of, the guys in the ownership group, and spoke with them and kind of figured out what was going on and what had happened. And at that point, I was determined to do anything I could to make the NPFL survive. And that's what I did. I tried to help them any way that I possibly could, any avenues that I felt could lead them in the right direction to help at all, which, they obviously anteed up and put everything out there on the line themselves. And, I was all in. So no hesitation for me.
Job wise, you're at your job now, right?
Yeah.
What's are you guys, what is your occupation?
I am a plant manager for a foam and plastic company. We build Mastercraft boat seats and Tyga boat seats.
So you're kind of in the boating,
a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. I was talking to you off
we
air
also
before.
have some government. What's that?
I was just saying, I was talking to you off air before that I thought maybe you were in like the solar, lunar, moon, something that had to do with like astronaut stuff with the 4 photos of different moon phases behind you.
No, my boss is kind of into the, I guess, space kind of thing or whatever. And where we got this office, he was like, I'm going to have a room for every planet. So we are currently in the moon room.
There you go. So goal to eventually, I mean, you just do this, or do you want to end up on the BPT, the Bassmaster Elite Series? I mean, the NPFL also is cool because when they announced it, yeah, they consider themselves a professional league, $5,000 entry fee. But try not to schedule on top of opens. We saw a number of guys that fished all 9 opens last year. There's a number of guys that are fishing a lot of the opens this year and can still fish the NPFL, and made no qualms about it that they wanted to provide a platform for guys that had I guess, kind of not fallen through the cracks, but that were good enough that needed a home to fish for that type of money, but fully expected them to move on to higher levels of or other levels of competition, pro circuit, BPT, elite series, that type of stuff. Are those aspirations that you have in the future?
Most definitely. And a lot of that depends on sponsor dollars. You know, I mean, I have a good platform now with NPFL, and I want to fish the opens. I want to move on to that next level. Initially, 5 years from now, I'd like to see myself fishing NPFL and Bassmaster Elite Series. Now, whether I go out and fish all 9 opens and fish 6 NPFLs,
if you want to fish all 9 opens, it depends how much you hate yourself, how much self-loathing you have as to whether you want to put yourself through that.
I definitely want to fish 3, so I'm definitely doing everything I can to be able to get into 1 division next year.
See, the problem with 3, though, Taylor, is you got everything works good. There's someone on your starting spot, you run to the next one, you dump a 4-pounder, you kind of get spun out, you salvage the day, you finish the first day in like 150th, and then you have an average second day. Now your year's over, and you just spent 2 years, and you got to wait for the whole next year because you have to average 3 top, at the very bare minimum, 3 top 18s.
Yeah. So hopefully I go into the opens, and we'll just go into the opens like we've had in the past NPFL.
Win. Thanks for coming out. We call that the Hanselman.
Yeah, that's right.
The Hanselman. Just win the whole division, win the championship. Say thanks for coming out.
Yeah, appreciate it. See y'all next time. I hope so. But,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an aspiration to possibly do Elite Series and the NPFL. That would be the pinnacle, I think.
Sponsorship wise, I'm real interested in this. You can go into this as much as you want, ignore it as much as you want. But my question is, you've won back-to-back NPFLs. Have you had sponsors knocking at your door? Have you noticed an uptick? Has it been more doors open to you? Not just, hey, here's a bag of worms or here's a discount on this, but actually kind of investing as you as an angler?
Yeah, so I had a couple of people that were already in the motion. We were already making things happen and talking, and the second win really kind of sealed those. And then now, whereas I used to send an email or make a phone call or something like that, and maybe I wouldn't get a response, or they would be like, yeah, well, take a number. At least now I've got the resume that I can actually get the time and get the hard conversation started.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it may end up being a no in the end, and that's fine. But you've got to be able to get to the point to where you can have those hard conversations and really sit down and they know that you're serious. Because in the past, they're like, yeah, well, I mean, anybody can pay their money and go fish a Costa, or anybody can go fish the opens. That's great, but what are you really doing with your life? Well, now I've got some backup to say, well, here's my resume, here's what I can do, and here's what I've been doing, and here's from 1 year ago or 2 years ago to now, this is what I've done, and this is how much we've grown. And so I've really got some per se data to back up whenever I go into these meetings or go into these phone calls.
Had you won a lot of like big local regional stuff before you popped these 2 NPFL wins?
No, I worked too much.
So did it kind of surprise you? I mean, are you kind of like, yeah, like I kind of knew this was coming, I know I'm a good angler, or were you like, holy cow, I just won 2 back-to-back $50,000 derbies?
No, not at all, because what would happen is I worked Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, and tournaments were on Saturday, so I would show up for the tournament and put the boat in the water. Well, I wouldn't figure them out until 12 o'clock. Everybody else had been out there for the past 2 days practicing, and I would come in and finish in the top 10, top 15, top 20, and I hadn't been on the water in 10 days, 12 days, 14 days, 2 months, and I knew in my heart that if I could get out there and I could spend some time on the water before these tournaments, I could figure it out and I could go catch them. So with having 3 days of practice, dude, it's unbelievable for me. 3 days of practice is almost too much for me.
Yeah.
But
your Tennessee guys, like, you got the little bit of the draw, you kind of catch them. Like, you guys are a scary bunch because you understand, like, spotted bass, you understand moving water, you understand current, you understand a lot of things of where to put yourself in position to succeed. Like, I'm not saying it's not like that in other parts of the country, but like in Oklahoma, we just don't have a lot of opportunities to fish that type of stuff, like a Cumberland with the run in like that, with the current, the clear water, some of that stuff. Like, it seems like the Tennessee guys, we're seeing what Michael Neal's doing right now. Obviously, Andy Morgan, Wesley Strait. I don't even want to start naming all the Tennessee guys, and then all the guys that are moving there now. Jacob Wheelers, Hunter Shryox, Miles Berghoff, tons of guys that are moving to Tennessee. But it seems like a really good state and part of the country to be able to figure out multiple different types of bites and understand multiple different types of water.
Yeah, I can spend an hour in the truck and I can fish grass, and then I can spend another hour in the truck and I can catch smallmouth out of 40 foot of water, 50 foot of water. It is a really great place. And I spent 25 years in North Alabama. I grew up in North Alabama. My parents had a lake house on Lay Lake. So I grew up on the Coosa River. I fished Guntersville. I fished Smith. I mean, I spent half of my life there cutting my teeth. And then whenever I moved to Tennessee, I really learned the, Cherokee, Douglas, Norris, the lakes like that. And then, of course, being on Chickamauga and Watts Bar. And I've just really I've been fortunate enough to be in some areas and live in some areas that I became a well-rounded angler, I feel like.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was talking with Josh Douglas in the first segment about, like, I've kind of geographically split up the spotted bass, like, to 4 different types, even if they might be the same strain, which I don't think they are. I think they're different strains. But angler-wise, I think you can do the same thing there. And traditionally, I've always done like the like that kind of Florida, Georgia, that East Texas, Louisiana, the kind of Ozark area, like the Alabama area, and then like West Coast, which I know there's a ton of different stuff on the West Coast, but I'm just saying anything west of Oklahoma, I'm considering West Coast. But there's definitely that group. Oh, and then the Carolina guys. The Carolina guys are big.
Yeah,
and then you have like your outliers. Well, we got a lot of Minnesota guys, Wisconsin guys now, but that kind of nucleus right there in Tennessee, it like is a mixing pot of like 3 different styles of anglers. You've got like the Alabama guys. You're not that far from the blueback lakes and the Clearwater there. You're not that. I mean, you got the smallmouth. It kind of has the best of everything. It's just a little bit of a drive instead of like in your backyard, 2 or 3 hours away.
Yeah. It's definitely a great place. I was worried whenever I found out that we were going to be moving here. That was the first thing I did. I pulled up the map and I'm like, okay, where are we going? I'm like, oh, there's Chickamauga. Oh, there's Watts Bar. Oh, there's, this lake, that lake. And then I'm like, well, and then I got here and I started going to these lakes and I'd never been to them before. So I was, 15, 20 years behind all the guys that I was fishing against. And I learned them quickly. And I fished with some local people and stuff that helped me out and learned some new techniques and some different things. But I really attribute that to what I've been able to do on the NPFL for sure.
There's no way to actually figure this out. But I'd be interested in knowing, like, just on average, how long it takes a guy who's a fishy guy like yourself, guy who catches a lot of fish, tournament fishes, moves to a new part of the country like you did. How long before there's a gap there, right? You're competing against guys who've been there their whole lives in 20 years. You come in, it's your first time on the water. It's stuff that they've seen their whole lives. How long before like that gap is closed?
You know
what I mean?
I want a Tuesday nighter on Fort Loudon. Oh man, let's see. We came in October. I won it the following March. So yeah, about 6 months. 8
But
months,
do you
I
think
won my
that's
first
because you
tournament.
figured and closed that gap, or do you think that's because you're seeing it with different eyes than the guys who have been there for 25 years and run past and not tried all this stuff because this is what you always do on Fort Loudon?
Yeah, I was definitely on a stretch that nobody really touched very much. And that was very eye-opening to me, too. Because, it's like, I told a couple of guys, they were like, where'd you catch them at? And I told them, they're like, do what? You did what? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, we never fished there. And I'm like, well, I do.
Well, you continue to not fish there. It's my spot now.
Yeah, that's right. Y'all stay out of there. I don't want to see you in there.
Next one coming up then, NPFL on
Hartwell.
There was a tournament there recently. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, I was kind of upset about that a little bit.
That should be a good one. End of April.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun. I mean, it's gonna be. You're gonna be able to do whatever you want. It's gonna be a spawn, pre-spawn, post-spawn. It just depends on what you want to do. If you want to go fish some dirty water, you can. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. We'll get
try to go for the
three-peat.
Try to go for the three-peat is what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, we also got Watts Bar right after that, and that's my home lake. So,
you're primed to just run the table, dude. You got to just hope it doesn't turn into a forward-facing sonar deal or like a muddy water pitching deal, or else you got to deal with Keith and John.
Yeah. Oh, Keith had me scared to death at Cumberland because I was catching him at Cumberland, and I knew what Keith was doing, and I was like, I knew in my mind, I'm like, dang it, Keith's crushing them. I got to catch one more. Keith was like the driving force behind me catching 23 pounds because I was like, I got to catch one more. I know he's going to have like 30.
But. All right, you got anything else? Yeah, title sponsor this year and stuff. Anything you want to get in here?
Yeah, so Baitworks out there close to you. Well, kind of close to you, not super close, but I started working with them, Baitworks and Boatworks, and Bass Boat Electronics. Bass Boat Electronics has stepped up and helped me out. I know you're a bass tank guy, and John, and I love John, but we're out here on the eastern side of the country. So if you're on the eastern side of the country towards Tennessee or anything like that, you need your boat rigged, I mean, I'm not trying to take business away from John or anything. I like John.
Dude, there's more than one type of crankbait. There's more than one type of rod and reel.
Yeah, that's right. And
have at it.
And instead of driving 14 hours, you could, swing by East Tennessee and let Bass Boat Electronics hook you up.
They've been around a while. Good reputation.
Yeah, good people. I was as I sat down with my wife a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking about things that were going on. And after the Classic, after things had kind of slowed down, and I kind of started naming off the people that we were aligning ourselves with. I picked up Pro Guide batteries this year. I know you've been using Pro Guide, and I just kind of sat down and thought about who I was aligning myself with, and just trying to make sure that I aligned myself with the right people in this industry. And I sat down and named off the people that we were working with, and I was like, we're building a team. We're building a good team. So nice. that makes me feel good. That's we've come a long ways in the past year, that's for sure.
All right, dude. Well, I'll let you get back to work.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking time. I greatly appreciate it, Taylor.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. It's a good excuse to sneak out for a minute.
I hear you. All right, have a good one.
All right, dude. See you. Thank you.
All right, that was Taylor Watkins, two-time TNPFL winner. And if you're listening on iTunes, it is worth going back and watching the first segment of the show with what Josh Douglas was doing. All sorts of weird bed fishing stuff over the last month that we've seen. But that will wrap it up for today's BTL. Big thanks to Josh Douglas and Taylor Watkins. And we'll talk to you later.